John Wertz here. It is Friday morning, December 19th, 10 a.m. We are here with Steve Toth. With me is Kenneth Ernest, Lana Horde, Bob Bagley, and Larry Rogers. Good morning and welcome.
Morning.
As we discussed, feel free to take up to 5 minutes on your opening, and then we'll go around the room, the table for Q&A.
You bet. My name is Steve Toth. I am a small business owner, married to Babette for 41 years this past September, father of three, grandfather to two sets of twins. Go figure, right? Born 6 years apart. And small business owner, recovering Baptist pastor. Now I guess I'm a Fundacostal or Baptist-costal, I don't know how you say it, but I'm a mutt. Let's see, I served in the board of directors for Mighty Oaks for roughly 10 years. I took a sabbatical to run for Congress. I came into the Texas House in 2013, my freshman year, according to the Rice scorecard, which the Rice scorecard doesn't look at whether a vote is conservative or liberal, what it looks at is partisanship. And the only thing it looks at is it looks at every single vote you've ever taken. And whether you vote with Republicans consistently or whether you vote with Democrats consistently. And my freshman year, I was ranked 15th. When I came back, I left for 4 years. And when I came back in 2019, I went from 15th to 10th, to the following year 4th, to the following year 1st, to this past year 3rd. So I've done what very few have done in politics, which is I've become more conservative, not less conservative. And I've become more set and convinced that the values of conservatism are the guiding values that have established and made America and Texas great. I am a promises made, promises kept guy. I've kept my eye on the ball, and I've been responsive to my constituents every step of the way. And that's what I'm going to do in Congress. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Reset this timer. Okay. So are you still involved with Mighty Oaks? I know when you were before.
Yeah, I took a sabbatical. I asked to take a sabbatical while I was doing this. Mm-hmm. But I still, I'm in regular contact with Jeremy and the rest of the board and continue to refer guys for help to Mighty Oaks.
That's a great program.
Thank you.
Doing that with the son in the military. Definitely appreciate that. And the dad who had PTS, no doubt. And one of the first questions, why are you running for this office? What are your three main goals? To help, the second part that you answered was help the Trump administration codify into law current executive orders. And I heard something about that the other day. I don't remember what the number was. I know it's very high executive orders that he had, and only the few that have been codified. Do you know off the top of your head?
I don't know what the number is.
Okay. It's pretty significant. What would you do if you got in the office to make that happen? To get Speaker Johnson or whoever the speaker is at that time to get these things into law?
So first question was, why am I doing this? And it was January 2024. We were over at Black Walnut, and Mr. Crenshaw was holding a town hall meeting. And it was for elected officials. And both myself and Senator Creighton asked him, why are you supporting this bipartisan Senate deal that allows 5,000 people into the country a day, which now they're saying it was encounters, which it's all baloney. At the end of the day, it stopped at 5,000 people coming into, that was the language of the bill. It stopped at 5,000 actually, and that was over a 5-day average period. And, if you're in the Texas House, you understand what the three biggest drivers, it's education, medication, and incarceration. Those are the big, that's 85% of the entire budget right there. Education, medication, and incarceration. Illegal immigration, people coming across the border illegally, is busting the Texas budget. And we're getting no help at all from Dan Crenshaw. Zero. In fact, 50+% of the births in Texas are Medicaid births from people coming across the border to have babies. You cannot have open borders and a welfare state. It just doesn't work. And that was the main driver for me about why I decided to step up and do this.
Okay.
So, my opinion, we're headed for a little bit of a train wreck with these entitlement programs and Social Security. It looks like those lines are going to cross around 2032, which
Correct.
is coming up pretty doggone quick. And some things need to be done. Have you got a strategy, Steve, of how your thoughts on how we're going to fix this?
Yeah, the only way you right size and fix Social Security is to fund it. It's not an entitlement program. You and I pay into Social Security. Social Security is not an entitlement program. It's not a welfare thing. The government takes our money from us. I would love to opt out of Social Security. No American should be forced to give their money to Social Security. But we are, and it's not a welfare system. They take that money from us. They make a commitment to pay it back, and they're going to be busted by 2032. And it is. It's coming up really quick, 7 years from now. And the only way we're going to be able to right size it is America is going to have to be truly America first, which means we're going to have to stop this baloney of funding all these foreign sources. The very fact that $25 to $40 million every single week is funding the Taliban in Afghanistan, that is going to NGOs that caused that money to wind up into the hands of the Taliban. What is that money going towards? It's going towards terrorism, which will happen right here in our own country. So the first thing that we've got to do is we've got to right size our spending, and we've got to do away with these deficits. That's the only way we're going to be able to tackle Social Security and save it.
The fun fact about the Medicaid births, I was a Medicaid worker back in 1990. You know that we have been paying for that since that time?
Oh, yeah.
The anchor babies that can come over with a mom who's illegal and have their baby here, and their baby is full Medicaid until they're 2 years of age.
And here's
It's
the
been around
crazy
a long time.
here's the crazy thing is that Medicaid and public education kind of go back and forth every single year. As far as which one's the biggest draw on the Texas budget. It was only 4 or 5% just 30 years ago. That's all it was. And now it's breaking the budget.
Right, because of Medicaid expansion with
correct.
Obamacare.
Right.
Correct, yeah. It'd be interesting to see that trend in a chart. Let's see if I can find some data.
Yeah.
My question is about the question we had here about the Trump's tariffs. We had asked if they're any different from Smoot-Hawley, which was more protectionism.
Sure.
And I like the way you framed your answer. You had some really good facts to drop
There's a
in.
huge disparity between Smoot-Hawley and what Donald Trump is doing. Smoot-Hawley sought to close European markets to American consumers. It was true protectionism. It's exactly what it was. Trump is simply saying, this is simply saying, if you're going to put a tariff on us, we're going to put a tariff on you. And here's the crazy thing is that Democrats said it's going to explode inflation. Well, if you think it's going to explode inflation, you don't know how the free market system works. Manufacturers do not price a good based on what it costs to produce and ship it. They price the good based on what the market will bear. How do I know that? Well, there's a 25% tariff on Toyota Camrys coming in from Canada. Why? Because Trump has stated, until the Canadians play ball with us, we're going to put a 25% because they're putting even higher tariffs on our goods coming into Canada. Has a Camry gone up 25% in cost? No, it has not. I was speaking with a guy, knocked on his door just a week ago of an Oak Ridge. He has a business. They import things. There's a 400% tariff on his product. 400%. I said, has the cost gone up 400%? Nope, it is not. I'll stick to it. You won't even have to just show it to me. You won't have to put the buzzer on.
I don't know how to take it off.
Oh.
I had one to carry on. Well, I'll do this. Go on this one. Talking about the Republican Party platform, One of our planks on our platform for years has been to abolish property taxes. We seem to get very little done towards that. It seems like we're going to get a little bit taken off each time, but um, with having the property taxes and then having the
Consumption tax?
no, the reevaluation every year,
Appraisals.
the appraisals continue to go up. If we abolish the property taxes, we wouldn't have an appraisal district to have to worry about. It's not going to be a position that you can do anything about in the federal government.
I'm
but-
going to continue to, this is going to continue to be an issue for me, and I'm going to continue to talk about it. Yes, the federal government does not put out a property tax, neither does the state, but you got to have people that are willing to talk openly and honestly about it, because there's so much murkiness and so much confusion that's caused by our elected officials.
But do you feel part of the problem is because of the lobbyists trying to stop it from taking place?
I think that's a big part of it. I think the bigger problem is the shiny objects that politicians want to chase after. So Dr. Vance Ginn works for the Texas Public Policy Foundation. He advanced a piece of legislation in 2019 that I filed in special session. I then filed it in 21 and again in 21, again in 23, and again in 25. And what it simply says is if local government will hold spending to population truly adjusted for inflation, then the state of Texas would hold spending to population adjusted for inflation, truly hold it, and not say, hey, we're going to bring Hollywood to Texas and spend $3 billion on that, but we're not going to say it's part of the budget. Or we're going to spend $5 billion on Alzheimer's research, but we're going to say it's not going to be part of the budget. As long as we're chasing all these shiny objects, we'll never be able to do this. But what Vance's plan called for, this is what Florida is doing. And honestly, this is what Governor Abbott is talking about doing right now, as opposed to what the lieutenant governor wants to do. You simply hold spending, population adjusted for inflation, and then you take the surplus every single session, which 18 to $30 billion, and you take 80% of that and you use it to buy down our taxes. In just 10 years, 8 to 10 years, it will completely eliminate the ISD tax. Your taxes will drop 60%. If you keep on going, it can take all the taxes off the board within 16 to 18 years. It's doable. What it requires, and it's always been the issue. We overtax people. We don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem. And the problem with government is you got elected officials that want to expand the role of government.
Well, you know as well as I do, as a businessman, that you get a new customer doesn't mean you have to increase your prices for everybody.
It's an economy of scale, right, Bob? I mean, why is it there's an economy of scale in every single sector of the world
Except government.
except government,
It's because our elected officials do it.
right?
Yeah, are you familiar with the policy papers that Don Huffine's Liberty Foundation wrote on that? He wrote like 2 or 3. I only found them in the last month or so, but it'd be interesting to see how similar his approach, because it's a phased-in approach too, is to Governor Abbott's.
One of the things that I love about his ads right now is he is saying like any program that has hidden money where DEI dollars are going into it, he's going to stop it. Now, is there any place in the legislation that enables him to stop it? No, but he'll be our comptroller, right? And he can just simply say, no, we're not doing that. Take me to court and sue me. That's the kind of leadership that we need.
Thank you.
They'll have a big bully bubble.
Yep, sure will.
Yeah, thank you.
Larry?
Okay, our question, why are you running for this office from 3 main goals? And you touched on this earlier. The first one was, your answer was stop the advancement of Sharia and Islamic in America. Islam is not a religion. It's a military organization bent on world domination. Could you give...
If you look at Eastern Europe, up until 600 AD, if you look at Northern Africa, up until 600 AD, were those Muslim nations or were they Christian nations? They were Christian nations. And it has always been the objective of Islam to conquer or subjugate. You have two types of people in the United States today. First off, there's no such thing as an Islamic extremists. They're fundamentalists and they're moderates. If you simply look at Sharia, if you look at Islam, all the tenets of Islam are laid out for why they are militaristic, why they believe in subjugation of people, why they believe in throwing a gay person off of a roof, why they allow an adult man of 40 years of age to marry a 9-year-old. It's pedophilia, right? All that is part of Islam. It's not something that's added to it. Moderates will always eventually become fundamentalists if the government does not either remove them or clamp down on them. Europe ceased to clamp down on them because they're afraid of being called Islamophobic, right? And so they quit clamping down on the fundamentalists. And what's happening? More moderates are becoming fundamentalists as a result of it. The moderates wish that the government would clamp down on the fundamentalists, but government is afraid. And that's the problem we have today in America. I don't care what the issue is. We've got cowards that are in office that refuse to clamp down on these people.
So how would you approach getting something done?
First off, we need to start targeting these organizations for what they are. They're terrorist organizations. They're not religious. They're terrorists. Islam is not a religion. It's you can look at it as a government institution, or you can look at a form of government, or you can look at it as a militaristic institution. In many respects, it's no different than Antifa. It's older. That's really all it is. But at the end of the day, we've got to clamp down and remove these people from us, from our country. Look, you can go all the way back to 1920 and look at lawmakers back in the 20s, and they would not allow people from Arab nations and Persian nations, Arabs being the Sunnis, the Persians being the Shia. They would not allow them to come into the United States for the very simple reason that they would not assimilate, and they won't assimilate. And we've got to stop it.
Alrighty. There's a question in here about the J6 protesters compared with Antifa, BLM, pro-Palestinian. What can be done, or what is being done, and maybe it's in the hands of DOJ right now, to go after people like Liz Cheney's and Kitzinger's of the world, who basically pushed a false narrative out there, had a lot of people arrested, destroyed their lives, their fortunes and everything. What has Congress done? What did your opponent do against these folks to call that out? Because now we're seeing more and more come out that the FBI was involved in that sort of thing.
So the J6 Commission was an absolute scam, and we all know that. And these individuals that served on the J6 Commission that were hiding evidence, they should be prosecuted for it. It was a miscarriage of justice. And my opponent was defending Liz Cheney as she was part of this scam. And he said, well, she eventually went off the tracks. No, she went off the tracks 20 years ago. She hasn't been on the tracks. She hasn't even been in the train station for the past 15 years. So no, she was completely off the tracks when she was on the J6 Commission. And he was defending her, saying that she has more character than any member of Congress, which is absolutely ridiculous.
Okay. Can I chime into that one?
Yep. What can we do? Congress can't fire judges that are
They can impeach him.
They can impeach them and they can also defund them. But we're not seeing any of them come forward to do the things that need to be done. And President Trump's continuing to get things filed against him. And
It's lawfare.
it is. And somebody's got to stop. What can you do, or will you do when you get in office?
I'm going to continue to be a voice for the truth in this. Here's the hard part about the serving in the federal government. I've been criticized by Dan Crenshaw for not having passed a lot of legislation, when the reality is that in one session, I've passed probably 10 times more legislation than he has in 6 years or 8 years that he'll be in Congress. It's meaningful legislation, too, that protects our children and protects our homeland, that protects the classroom. He obviously doesn't believe that is important, unfortunately. But as it pertains to these judges, the only thing that we can do is we can be a voice of truth and reason, and we've got to be willing to speak out against it.
As a constitutionalist and a believer in the Constitution, we've got the 10th Amendment to the Constitution, right? It's really supposed to push things down to the states that aren't part of what the federal government's supposed to do. So, opinion, I'll give you some thoughts, and I'd like to get your reaction to your thoughts, Steve. So, for instance, I think the state of Texas, I think the TCEQ does a decent job. EPA can be a little hard to handle. As an example, and having worked in that industry, what would you think about basically pushing all of what EPA does down to the state level and let the states handle?
Yeah,
things that the EPA
that's
does?
actually, like, you can make an argument 50, 60, maybe 100 years ago that the FDA was needed. Love Canal, and all these different areas of the United States where you now see these Superfund cleanups, and there wasn't anything at the state level or at the federal level. But the reality is the FDA serves no purpose at all. I'm sorry, EPA serves no purpose. The TCEQ is more than adequate and up to the job to do this. We should absolutely do away with the Environmental Protection Agency. The TCEQ is fine. Even now, when you're trying to build a road, as an example, and you have to deal with the Clean Air Act. Well, okay, so what we're going to do, we want to extend a third lane on 45 here in front of the Woodlands up to Conroe. And we've got the room, we've got space, it's there, we just have to color it. But because of the Clean Air Act, we've got to go through the EPA. It takes 18 to 22 months. Meanwhile, cars are sitting standstill, locked in traffic, burning up gas, emissions into the atmosphere, right, if that's such a bad thing. And none of it's getting handled simply because it has to go through the EPA. It's something that could be handled at the TCEQ in a matter of hours. It's stupid.
And as an add-on to that, so most of the EPA rules, you're probably aware, the states can adopt their own rules, but they must be stricter. So the EPA sets the baseline.
Right.
If you want to do anything that's less, you're not allowed. You can adopt your own rules, but they've got to be stricter than what the EPA says.
And again, where does it say that the EPA has been granted that authority in the Constitution? And that's why the states have got to start nullifying and interposing. They've got to stand up, say, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to nullify, or we're going to interpose.
Can I tag on to that one, since
Sure.
we're doing a 3-letter agency? I feel the same way with the Department of Energy.
Completely. We don't, yeah. I mean, there's some roles of the DOA, roles within the Department of Energy. Like, they're the ones that oversee the handling of the nuclear football and nukes. But again, that can just get shifted over to Department of War.
Yeah. You know how much energy the DOE has ever produced?
None.
Zero.
Yeah. It's
How much
ridiculous.
do they get in the way? Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, Steve, I have a question, and it's about immigration, but it's sort of arcane.
Okay.
Because I done a deep dive on some things. I started looking into the H-1B visa program, reading about a study about how Amazon had like the highest number of any business um, bringing people in to replace Americans because they're saying that Americans are not qualified, so they just bring
It's
people in.
baloney.
Starts chain migration.
Yeah.
But then I realized there's another one. There's like 5 different really weird little visas you can get, and I want to talk to you about that, and then find out what can you do, what would you be empowered to do from the bully pulpit as well as legislation once you get to DC, because these are federal and we can't fix them here in Texas. They got to be fixed in DC. The other one is the EB-5 investor program. If you have over $1 million, if you're a qualified investor, you can basically buy a green card and you can start bringing your whole family in. And it was um, revised probably and given a whole lot more authority and a lot more potential for abuse in 22 during the Biden administration. It's worth looking at. Rafael Anchia, who is a state representative, does the program almost exclusively through civitatscapital.com, his site. So when I found that site and I started looking at those things, I was just appalled at basically we're selling U.S. citizenship to the highest investor, and it's creating a huge gap in the policies we have now. So if you could address what you know about those, or looking into those, and then what can we do to close that gate? The cow's gotten out already, but we do have to close the gate on the barns.
I'm gonna hit 2 things.
Yeah.
I want to hit on students that are being screwed out of a job because now they're competing with foreign kids, and I also want to address the amount of H-1B visa activity coming in. We give schools all these tuition revenue bonds and grants for Pell Grants, right? Does the cost of education go down? No, it goes up, right? So kids graduate from college because we have been, I'm against this, I've been voting against it, but we fund the schools so that they can raise tuition rates, not bring them down, but raise them. So kids are graduating with a record high level of debt, student loan debt. And then they have to go into the marketplace to find a job, only to find out that the federal government also has given all these H-1B visas to kids from other countries that have no debt. They can work for half the amount of money. You've got kids coming out of school today that need to make $40,000 to $50,000 just to service their debt. Is that fair? Is that right?
With a degree in confused gender studies.
Yes, with a degree. Well, I mean, even sometimes even legitimate degrees that isn't basket weaving, credentialed. And they're still having a hard time finding these jobs as well. But here's the big problem, and you can go to Numbers USA and check this out for yourself. We bring 1 million people into the United States every single year. 333,000 will go right onto the welfare rolls.
Yep.
It's breaking us. It's got to stop. All immigration needs to be curtailed. We've got to grow into what we've got, and we've got to remove people that are here that are not productive citizens, even the ones that have come here legally. If you're not a productive citizen, you need to be sent back home.
Well, and I've known you for quite a while. You were following numbersusa.com when it wasn't cool. I do appreciate that.
Yeah. I've learned a lot from them. It's a great resource.
Yep.
All right, Bob.
One of the questions was, do you support or oppose requiring schools, public health departments, or any medical personnel to secure consent from a parent or legal guardian before prescribing, dispensing, or administering contraceptive drugs or devices to a minor? Shouldn't this also apply to any medical issues, including genitalia or body mutilation that's taking place in our country that doesn't happen?
Here's what's crazy. It used to be that if you wanted to dispense aspirin or Tylenol, you had to ask mom's permission. And yet, prior to 2019, you could walk into a kid could be identified as being clinically depressed, seen by a licensed psychiatrist, and dispensed drugs, SSRIs, in our public schools. And in 2019, we killed Senate Bill 10 and 11. They brought it back. And the problem with the bill is that it enabled counseling of kids and to be seen by these professionals without mom and dad knowing about it. Now, I could have voted against the bill, which there are only 10 of us that were willing to do it, but not conservatives, Republicans wanted our vote. We said, okay, if we agree to vote for it, will you take an amendment that basically states parents have to be notified and they need their permission to see the kids? And they're like, yeah, we'll take that. So we got that into the language. So no longer can you do that. However, Bob, what was going on is that you would have gender affirming care going on in the school district, and then the kid would and the parents would be sent to a doctor. A lot of schools, the parents weren't even notified about it, and the kids would be put on Lupron. What's Lupron? Well, Lupron keeps you from going through puberty. And once you're done going through puberty, then you're put on a cross-sex hormone without parents even knowing about it. You're like, that's crazy. Yet it was going on right here in Counter Independent School District under the prior superintendent. One kid, his parents came forward, 5 years, multiple campuses, multiple teachers, they were transitioning them.
Wow, that's scary.
Along that same line, one of our questions was, do you support or oppose specifying that the parents have the right to exempt their children from immunizations? And I liked your answer. You said immunization process needs to change from an opt-out mentality to an opt-in mentality. Explain a little bit.
So the general thought is, if the schools want to do this, they can do this, and then you just have to simply opt out of it if you don't want it, which that's not the way it should be, because that's not the role of education. The role of education is to teach our kids. It's not to woefully indoctrinate our kids. So if you want to do anything outside of reading, writing, and arithmetic, people should have to opt into it, not opt out of it. So parents should have to say, yes, I want the district to do this. And then a kid should have to get a note from his parents if the parents want their kid to do that.
Thank you.
Okay, do you support or oppose withdrawing the U.S. from the WTO, World Trade Organization? You said it's a joke, we should leave it. What's stopping Congress from leaving that? I mean, where are
The WTO is a joke. It's wealth redistribution. It's to take money from established Western economies and to redistribute it to poorer economies that generally just waste it through fraud and abuse. There's a reason why countries with an ample amount of strong workforce that will work for very little, there's a reason why they're still poor, and it's because of fraud, waste, and abuse. Because they have been given plenty of money, plenty of opportunities through the WTO, through private funding to be successful, and yet they're not successful. Why? Waste, fraud, and abuse.
So, Steve, could you give us the top one or maybe two, what you feel are the biggest differences between you and Representative Crenshaw? What do you, from your perspective, what are the two things or one or two things that you're going to bring that you feel he's been really lacking on that you could change?
Yeah. For one, I show up. He doesn't. His track record, and this is going to come out later on, about showing up for work. I show up and I work really hard. Number one. Number two, 281-770-7287. That's my cell phone, and I've given it out to 198,000 of my closest friends. And the reason why we do that is that it's so easy, whether it's through an email that doesn't go through, or a phone call that gets dropped out of voicemail, or someone just forgetting on your staff to ask you something about something that someone had asked them about. So I like to give my cell phone number out. No, people are not going to harass you. If I get 10 calls a week, that's a lot. But I think transparency and availability is critically important. The second thing, he did a town hall last night, a phone town hall, and a number of people recorded it and sent it to me. And one of the third or fourth questions was, and he said, "Okay, I think it's around the 28-minute mark of the recording." He said, "Okay, I'll take this call, or I'll take this question." Bob from Spring, and I can't remember if it wasn't you, Bob Bagley, but it was a Bob or Mark or something. Bob or Mark from Spring said, "Why do you vote with Democrats so much?" And he said, I don't vote with Democrats. I never vote with Democrats. Steve Toth votes with Democrats, which, if all you have to do is look at my record and the right scorecard, that's not me saying that. I'm making it's just the fact of the matter is Steve Toth votes with Democrats less than any member of the Texas House, probably in the history, because over the past 5 sessions, I have a record. You can look at the record, the right scorecard, an independent organization that's nonpartisan that says Toth votes with Democrats less than anybody. Well, Dan Crenshaw, on the other hand, voted with very few Republicans and all of the Democrats to spend $400 million on creating a vaccine database. Dan Crenshaw voted with 30 Republicans and all the Democrats against an amendment that would have taken the money away from the IRS. Remember how the IRS was armed? We armed the IRS at the federal level, allowed them to take guns to get your money, right? Dan Crenshaw voted against disarming them. Only, there are dozens and dozens and dozens of bills just like that, including red flag laws.
So I like what you had to say about term limits. We asked you about that, so I want you to visit that very brief, but it won't take up a full 2-minute response. But then the real question is this. So you're going to get sworn in January of 27. You're going to have 2 years left with Trump. You're going to be a freshman. And how are you going to hit the ground running? And how are you going to get the things accomplished that you want to accomplish within that 2-year period? And hopefully we get the next 8 years with a J.D. Vance or a Rubio or somebody. But if you term limit yourself, you got a short window and you got to move fast. So how are you going to do that?
I'll hit the ground running by virtue of the fact too that I know what's coming after me. I went in as a freshman in 2013 thinking, hey, man, these Republicans, they're going to love us. They're just going to be so excited that there's some strong conservatives coming to join them. Not so much.
No.
Not so much. So I guess I'm a lot wiser the older that I get to know what I'm going to be up against when I get there. Number one. Number two, I'm a hard worker. I'm a really hard worker. Number three, I think the most important thing that anybody coming in to Congress, this is going to be one of the biggest freshman classes in a long time. And for the Republicans, I think that we've all got to take the attitude and the mindset. Put your agenda aside. And we've got to get on board helping Trump codify his executive orders. Day one, if we lose in 2 years and the Democrats take the White House, day one, the next president will do exactly what Kamala Harris or what Joe Biden did, or really what Jill Biden did, which was auto pen and kill all of Trump's executive orders. We've got to be single-minded in helping Trump get his executive orders codified into law. That's what we've got to do.
Do you think there's enough support from Congress and maybe the incoming to do that?
I think we're going to hold the House. I don't think we're going to lose Congress. We're going to hold the House. I'm really encouraged. If you look at the polling numbers, Democrats their unfavorability rating has not been this low in our lifetime, and Republicans is still fairly high. So,
Opinion, I think, with all of us, it's a big, beautiful bill, and that really starting to take off first quarter of next year, and the economy's just gonna
explode.
Boom.
By the time November gets here, all that extra money that's being left in our pockets, we're not giving money to people. We're just not taking as much from them. And if you leave it in their pocket, the velocity that currency moves through the economy will explode. And that's what's going to make our economy take off.
We know congressmen don't earn a big income, but do you believe they should be able to use their position and knowledge from their position to invest in the stock market?
You should go to jail for doing
basically,
that.
like insider trading?
Yeah, I should go to jail for it. And here's the crazy thing is that Dan Crenshaw is saying, have there been a few votes here and there with like someone like Nancy Pelosi where their trading emulated something else that happened? Yeah, but that's he actually, it's funny because he's actually said that it not only does he not accept responsibility for anything he's done, but he tries to make it look like this is not going on in Congress. It is going on in Congress. There's so many Republicans, so many conservatives that said this is a real problem. That you've got, not only do you have members of Congress, but you have family members that are also trading on that information. I serve in the Appropriations Committee in the state of Texas. I heard about deals. I heard about things that were going to be purchased long before the general public did. But I stayed out of the market, and I'm going to continue to stay out of the market, and I'm going to continue to push for a ban on members of Congress being able to trade.
What about, would you be in favor or okay with someone that, bought into an index fund or something like that that's not stock specific, and that they wouldn't be able to withdraw it? They could add to it, but wouldn't be able to withdraw
Yeah,
it.
I mean, that's just it. It should, but it should, even that should wind up in a blind trust.
Okay.
So there's a lot of debate about big tent republicanism and common sense republicanism, and why are we getting more conservative? We ought to be getting more open-minded. What, in your opinion, what's that doing to our party right
So
now?
the Big Ten philosophy came from a guy by the name of Lee Atwater, if you'll remember back in the 80s, right? And Lee and these neocons said, look, we just need to be focused on fiscal issues. And if we would just focus on fiscal issues, in other words, become Democrat light, then people will beat a path to our door. And the frustrating thing is that, it was about 8 years before that Ronald Reagan said, bold colors, not pale pastels, but bold colors. And you know who he was speaking that to? He was speaking that to the young Republicans back in the 70s. And still today, if you look at where the party is taking off, it's taken off through organizations like Turning Point that are carrying forth a very bold conservative message. The big mistake that Republicans made is they listened to Lee Atwater and they said, hey, Republicans and Democrats, they want the same thing when it comes to education. No, they don't. Even back then, you had a book that was going on in the universities teaching schools called The Pedagogy of the Oppressed. And it was Marxism. And 6 out of 10 people coming out of these education schools are instilling Marxism in our children. Texas, 20 years ago, we were winning margin. We're winning with 23 and 24-point margins. Now we're lucky if we win with 8. Why? It's not people moving into Texas. Texas is still a red state because of people moving in. 7 out of 10 are voting Republican. Texas, we're losing Texas because of our children. We've abdicated our responsibility as parents and lawmakers to protect them.
Well, a lot of people that argue that are saying, well, we just need to unify because we need to be fighting the Democrats. And that sounds very compelling.
We should unify, and that means that the neocons should start listening to us, identify what the problem is, and join us or leave us.
Yeah, I agree.
Good. Okay. Well, we're at the point now, if you want to take up 5 minutes on closing, and then we'll wrap it up.
As I shared earlier, I heard a town hall last night from my opponent, Dan Crenshaw, where he said, I never vote with Democrats. Well, that's your track record. And there's a reason why when you released a poll just 3 weeks ago, your favorability was at 47% with 98% name ID. That's no one else's fault but his. It's not the fault of a fickle group of people, and it's not the fault of people that want to tear down heroes. He has said he's a hero, and people just want to tear him down, which The crazy thing is that in all the years, all the years of working with veterans, I've never heard a veteran that has come back home and called themselves a hero. They've called the people that they served with, that they lost over there, heroes, but they've never referred to themselves as heroes. We've got to get back to having somebody that represents us in Congress that will listen to people, that will humble themselves to meet with people, that will work hard for them instead of working hard for themselves. And we need selfless people that look forward to serving them. And we have done that. That's our track record. We're going to continue to do that in Congress. And I'm not going to be Trump's friend just when I'm running for re-election, as Dan Crenshaw has been. I'm going to work hard for him. You know, it was just January again of 2024 when Trump criticized the bill that Dan Crenshaw was supporting, which would have allowed 5,000 people into the country a day. And I think Crenshaw said something to the effect of, it's the height of stupidity to speak about that which you know nothing about, which to accuse Trump of not knowing what was in that bill. Trump called that bill, said it's not an immigration bill, it's an invasion bill. And it was an invasion bill. The funny thing about Dan Crenshaw is the only time he gets religion is when he's running for re-election. We need somebody that is consistent, that we know who you are, what your track record is, and what you're going to do. And that's who I am. I would appreciate your vote and support, and I will work hard for you. My website is Steve Toth for Congress. We'd love to have your help. Come to the website, help us. If you can't remember Steve Toth for Congress, just do stevetoth.com. God bless you and thank you.
Great, thank you, Steve. Appreciate you coming in. Thanks for filling out our questionnaire a couple times, actually. You were
Sorry.
at the beginning phase of that, so we
That's right.
apologize for that, but thank you for doing that again and again for coming in and stand up. Appreciate it, and good luck in your campaign.
Thank you, guys.